Or so, the polls in the US election have been essentially neck and neck. While Harris has always enjoyed a slight lead at the national level, her implied odds of winning the Electoral College have basically hovered around 50% since the debate, and neither candidate has really been able to break the deadlock, despite some pretty unorthodox media strategies. However, with just a couple of weeks to go until Election Day, certain corners of the Republican commentariat have been made giddy by Trump's recent improvement in the polls and on certain prediction sites, most notably Polymarket. So in this video, we're going to take a look at Trump's recent poll surge, how dramatic it's actually been, and what it means for the election. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop. Sides have a habit of overstating poll shifts by focusing on individual polls that look particularly good for their preferred candidate. Fox News, for instance, got very excited a few weeks ago when an Atlas Intel poll came out saying that Trump was 3 points ahead in the national vote and therefore on track to win an enormous majority in the Electoral College. Similarly, Democrats have been enthused by 2 New York Times Siena polls showing Harris up 4 points in the all-important swing state of Pennsylvania. However, it's generally not a good idea to focus on individual polls. Rather, the thing you want to be paying attention to are the poll aggregators, because they balance out anomalous results and are generally far more reliable than individual pollsters. Elvis aggregator, for instance, Harris currently enjoys a 2.3-point lead at the national level, and the two candidates are basically equally likely to win the Electoral College, although Trump now has the teensiest of edges. Similarly, the Financial Times' poll aggregator currently gives Harris a 2.3-point lead, while The Economist has it at 2.2. All of these aggregators still give Harris a slight lead on the national level. They all also suggest that there's been at least a bit of movement towards Trump in the past week or so. His national lead has been cut 0.7 points in the past week and is down roughly a point since early October. This has meant she's gone from the slight favorite in the Electoral College to the slight underdog. Now, this is in part because Trump's national poll improvements have been driven by improvements in swing states, especially the so-called blue wall of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. In the past month, Trump has gained roughly a point in all of these states. And Silver's aggregator now gives him basically a 50% chance of winning any of them, although Harris is still the slight favorite. However, much to the Republicans' delight, there has been a more dramatic swing towards Trump on the prediction markets, or forecast on upcoming events. These sites then aggregate these individual forecasts to give an overall probability. Now, prediction markets have become increasingly popular over the past few years because they're often more accurate than the polls. This is usually because opinion polls only tell you the public's opinion at a single moment. So if there's reason to think that public opinion will shift in the future, prediction markets can better account for this. To give concrete examples, candidates usually get a bump in the polls after their convention, which quickly subsides. This will usually show up in poll aggregators, but because forecasters probably know that this is just a bounce, it doesn't normally show up on the prediction markets. A crypto-based betting market. And here, there's been a remarkable swing towards Trump, who's apparently gone from being the slight underdog to now having a 60% chance of winning the Electoral College and on track to win every swing state. However, there's some reason to think the Polymarket might have a slight Trump bias because it's crypto-based. And crypto bros are generally more pro-Trump than your median voter, adding millions of dollars on him to boost his odds. Polymarket's defenders would argue that these biases will be corrected by profit-seeking players betting more on Harris to account for it. It's at least true that Polymarket is more pro-Trump than other non-crypto prediction markets like Predictit or Metaculus, which have it closer to 50-50. Anyway, even if we don't trust Polymarket, it's at least true that other pollsters and prediction markets still say that Trump has gained in the past week or so. Democrat commentators have claimed that this poll movement is mainly down to Republican pollsters flooding the aggregators with loads of pro-Trump polls as election day nears to give Trump a sense of momentum. As Republican-leaning pollsters have recently released an awful lot of polls. The Hub's aggregator, for instance, only uses highly rated non-partisan pollsters. But even here, Harris's lead has gone from 3.2 points in early October to just 2.2 today. The first thing to say is that this poll shift is way smaller than commentators have made out. And while Harris might have declined ever so slightly in the polls, the race has basically gone from being a toss-up to and inside Harris's campaign, where the working theory seems to be that whenever the news cycle is quiet, Trump ends up dominating the headlines and ticks up in the polls. Including Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy podcast and Howard Stern's show, as well as an interview with Fox News' Brett Bauer, the last two of which were clearly targeted at Trump-leaning swing voters. Eye on the polls coming out in the next few days, but the field work could be something that the TLDR audience have in common.